I'm going to get the tweeter off. Welcome into the Talkin Tide podcast on the Pigskin Podcast Network. I'm Chase Goodbread, sports writer with the Tuscaloosa News, joined as always by Travis Reier, the longtime senior analyst at BamaOnline.com. You can get the Talkin Tide podcast wherever you prefer to get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts. And, of course, you can catch us live on YouTube and Facebook as well. I want to thank Peterbrook Chocolatier of Tuscaloosa and DraftKings, a couple of fine sponsors of the show. We're convening here on an unusual evening, a Thursday night. We don't often podcast on a Thursday, but we deferred the Sunday night or two midweek, and pretty good timing, I guess, Travis, coming directly off a big, thrilling comeback win for Alabama at home over Auburn, 90-85 in overtime. It completes an undefeated home run for Alabama this season. They close it out 15-0 in Coleman Coliseum. They win the SEC regular season championship outright. They're facing one final regular season game on the road at Texas A&M. But this game against Auburn, Travis, had it all, and it was the absolute loudest I've ever heard Coleman Coliseum. We talked, I think, several podcasts ago about what the crowds have been like on Saturdays versus Wednesdays. And I was wondering if we'd see a Wednesday look like a Saturday. Well, Wednesday looked like a Saturday. And it was incredibly loud in Coleman. Alabama comes back from 17 down and pulls it out in overtime. And arguably the best game Javon Quinterly's ever played at Alabama. Certainly the best game he's played this season.
Yeah, the JQ game. I think that one will be remembered as. Plays 36 minutes coming off the bench and scores 24 on 7 of 12 shooting. Makes 8 of 9 from the free throw line. Hands out 6 assists and how many turnovers for JQ? In 36 minutes.
Goose egg.
0. Pretty amazing performance. And, boy, Alabama maybe getting too good at these overtime games. What's that, 2 in the last 3 outings for Alabama? And still some slowish starts. You're starting to worry about that a little bit, Chase. 4 of the last 5 games, I don't think Alabama scored more than 35 points in the first half of those contests. So I'm sure Nate Oates would like to see a little faster starts from his team.
Yeah, Arkansas got out on Alabama up 9 at the half. Auburn got out on Alabama. I think Auburn was up 7 at the half. So that's been an issue. Three-point shooting has been an issue. They've only shot about 20% from three-point range over the last 2 games. Terrible against Arkansas, 3 for 22. A little better against Auburn, 8 out of 31, but still not what you want to see. It was Auburn that shot the lights out in this rivalry game. But Alabama, fairly consistent, notwithstanding the Tennessee game and a couple other games that were losses or tight. But generally speaking, Travis, when Alabama has not had the three-point shot going, it has been able to figure it out by a combination of getting to the rim and playing D and rebounding.
Free throw line, too, as a part of getting to the rim, usually. They get fouled at a pretty high rate. I know Auburn fans weren't happy, and once again, with that whistle, especially down the stretch on Wednesday night. But 24 of 31 from the free throw line for Alabama. Auburn, on the other hand, makes 15 of 24, so a higher rate to the line for Alabama, a higher make rate. And in a close game like this, that's everything. You're right. Auburn shot the 3 especially well for a team this year that really hasn't done that. And Alabama in the second half really turned around things where points off turnovers were concerned because they kind of cleaned up the turnovers once again in the second half. And then also second chance points, because when you look at the offensive rebounds for Auburn, especially in the first 30 minutes or so of this game, and it almost killed Alabama down the stretch because they weren't able, Alabama was not able to get a defensive rebound on a missed free throw, right? And then you know the sequence I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then you've got Johnson gets fouled again after bricking 2 free throws, but Alabama cannot get a defensive rebound on a miss. Not a long rebound either, just your standard run-of-the-mill bangs off the rim and backboard miss. They don't get the defensive board. And it felt like at that point, after all this that Alabama had done a couple of times in the second half to give itself a chance, it was going to be a offensive rebound for Auburn off a missed free throw that could end up proving fatal for Alabama in this game.
Yeah, Auburn ended up looking good on in the rebounding front, 39-38. But in the second half, Alabama definitely did get that turned around some, in spite of the fact, Travis, that they lose Charles Bediako to an ejection during this game. Had everything, right? A couple ejections. You had Bruce Pearl throwing a headset at the end of the game, upset about a call. You had Auburn fouling guys out and a late injury that kind of decimated the Auburn lineup in overtime. And Alabama finishes the game for the entirety of overtime. They had their 3-point guards on the floor together, Bradley, Sears, Quinterly, with no Bediako to protect the rim because he had been ejected. So Miller and Clowney were kind of holding it down as the bigs for overtime. And as I mentioned, Auburn was having to play awful small in overtime as well because of the players they lost to injury / foul outs, etc.
Yeah, Auburn actually went to some zone because of it with what they had left. Because you're right, Dylan Cardwell, who works in support mostly of Broome, Johnny Broome, had to leave the game with an injury. So it was very much makeshift for Auburn. And so you liked Alabama's chances once it got to overtime, but you're thinking this game shouldn't be getting to overtime. Get Auburn credit, team fighting for its NCAA tournament life, and gave Alabama everything it wanted and more.
Yeah, no question. A couple of highlights. We mentioned Quinterly with the big game, 24 with 6 assists for him, shot 7 of 12, 17 points each for Clowney, Miller, and Sears. Clowney with a nice game, Travis, 7 of 11. He had 8 rebounds. He continues to be a consistent presence for Alabama as a freshman. And I kind of thought we would have seen a little more of Nick Pringle after – I'm a Pringle fan after Bediako got ejected, but it never happened. Bediako goes out, and Nate Oates' answer is basically keep going small and smaller. So it worked out for Alabama. They win 90-85. It's the second time they've won the SEC regular season title outright in the last 3 years. And they turn now to Texas A&M, Travis, Saturday, 11 a.m. Central Time, CBS game, going for win number 27, which would tie a program record, which is currently held by the 01-02 team that won 27 games and went out in the disappointing fashion, went out in the second round of the NCAA tournament with a loss to Kent State that year.
Yeah, how about that? And absolutely. And you talk about that stretch of really going pretty much smaller there in the second half against Auburn for Alabama. And I think some of that had to do with you're down 17. And at that point, when you get behind 17 in the second half, you just got to go with your best offensive group and hope they can score enough to get you back into the game and have a chance to win. But with A&M, it's going to be a similar type of matchup to what we've seen with Auburn a couple times, Tennessee, the game in Knoxville, because Buzz Williams' team will get after you defensively, and they are a physical bunch. They have an outstanding player on the ball in Wade Taylor. You think about how Javon Quinterly played in really these last couple of games, and then with Bradley and Sears in that mix for Alabama and Taylor for Texas A&M, that's going to be a heck of a matchup. So you can breathe a little bit easier, obviously. You've got the SEC championship secured. You're playing with house money going to Texas A&M now instead of playing for rent money. It's a
no question.
Big difference, right? When you got the house money, but then you need the rent money. They're not playing for the rent when they, this week.
No question. Travis, as we look ahead to that A&M game and then the SEC basketball tournament at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville the following week, what, in your opinion, does Alabama have to do to 100% lock in a number one seed?
This weekend,
Looks like we might have lost Travis for just a minute. Hopefully, we'll get him back here in just a second. Discussing, of course, the seeding with the Crimson Tide. Looking to lock in a number one seed in the NCAA tournament if they can, with one regular season game left to go. Of course, that would be a game or that would be a game in Birmingham if Alabama is able to nail that number one seed down. Potentially, I suppose, even if they end up somehow playing poorly down the stretch and end up with a 2 seed, I would think they would still play in Birmingham in that first and second round weekend. So we shall see on that. Hopefully, we'll get Travis back here in just a couple of minutes. But once again, recapping that win over Auburn, the Crimson Tide wins its 26th game of the season. Jaden Bradley with a big shot down the stretch for the Crimson Tide, only ends up with 6 points total, but certainly hit a big one late for Alabama on a reverse layup that helped kind of seal things down the stretch. And it was here we go. We may have Travis. We got you back, Travis.
ta-da!
I went solo there for just a minute.
Well, you can do that. You're talented enough. No, but I mean, you were asking about what Alabama might need to do to go ahead and secure a 1 seed.
Right.
I think one or both would work. Obviously, I think either a win at Texas A&M this Saturday to go 17-1 in the league, or perhaps with a loss to Texas A&M, at least win a game in Nashville.
Right.
And now, maybe not so much where the number 1 overall seed is concerned,
right.
but a 1 seed. And look, we can talk about the number 1 seed. We can talk about just being a 1 seed, just as if it's happened many times in Alabama basketball history or something. What we both know is, regardless of seed, it's still all about the draw and matchups. So you could be the number 1 overall seed. That's great. That's a nice feather in the cap for the program. But if the matchups don't work to your favor, really, at the end of the day, did you come out on top in that situation?
Is Alabama, do you think, completely locked in on starting in Birmingham, whether they're a 1 seed or not?
I got to think at this point they are. I mean,
I would think so.
It's
too.
about butts and seats, and selling tickets. And Alabama and Birmingham as a 1 or a 2 or whatever, that's that. Now, I mean, I understand once you get to a certain seed level, you don't want a team having a home court advantage to go along with, playing in an 8-9 game in Birmingham or something like that. But if we're talking 1 versus 16, 1 versus 8 in the round of 32, I could see that for sure.
All right. Lots to get into on the back end of of Talkin Tide here this night. I just taped Crimson Cover about an hour ago, so you're going to have to give me a little leeway, Travis. I got all these platforms that I'm juggling in my head, and they swirl around on me sometimes. All right. Talkin Tide podcast on the Pigskin Podcast Network, brought to you by a couple of fine sponsors. We're going to tell you about them right now. We're going to start by telling you a little bit about DraftKings. NBA fans, time to bring the hoops action to the palm of your hand with the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. This week, new customers can bet $5 and win $200 in free bets instantly. Plus, for a limited time, all new and existing customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every single day. So download that app now. Sign up with the promo code TPPN. New customers, again, can bet $5 on the NBA, get $200 in free bets instantly, only at the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Once again, use promo code TPPN.
Going to tell you about Peterbrook Chocolatier out there at 1530 McFarland Boulevard North in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa. Valentine's Day behind us, but Easter on the horizon. Peterbrook Chocolatier are going to take care of all your Easter treats. Give them a call, 205-752-0211, and go ahead and get your pre-orders filled right now. And so you're going to want to check out Peterbrook, too, for just your sweet tooth in general, right? I mean, anything in chocolate, the champions of chocolate can take care of you at Peterbrook Chocolatier, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa.
All right, the Talkin Tide podcast on the Pigskin Podcast Network. Moving on, I'm going to talk a little bit of spring football now. Coming around the corner, Travis, 3 weeks away. The Crimson Tide has a new inside linebackers coach once again, and Robert Bala comes from Liberty, a defensive analyst there under Hugh Freeze. And so one of those in and out deals with Austin Armstrong, here today, gone tomorrow. 9 days officially he clocked, I believe, after the Alabama announcement.
I don't think that qualifies for a pension, right?
No, not quite there. Not quite there. But at any rate, we will look ahead to the offense. Next week, we'll talk a little bit about the defense. Maybe following that, we'll hit the special teams. But tonight, Travis, let's talk offense, the quarterback battle. That'll be the talk of spring, the talk of summer. Jalen Milroe v. Ty Simpson, and, of course, a couple of incoming freshmen, Eli Holstein, Dylan Lonergan, and Tommy Reese, an offensive coordinator coming in from Notre Dame, who's going to be dealing with this quarterback battle. It's going to be interesting to see how that ends up getting handled. But if track record is going to be any indication, Travis, it's a good bet that Nick Saban will not signal a starter publicly until game week in the fall or soon before.
Yeah, I don't think either one of us are anticipating Nick coming up to the podium after the 8A game and going, that's it. We got our quarterback. We've seen enough of this to know that isn't going to happen. So absolutely going to be intriguing to see how this thing plays out. Everybody seems to have a thought on who benefits from Tommy Reese coming in and maybe his imprint on the offense. You know, could it be that, you know, it's Ty Simpson that ends up being more of the favorite with Reese coming in because there was a connection there, I guess, on the recruiting trail? Or is it Jalen Milroe because we've seen Reese utilize the quarterback at least somewhat as kind of a runner and a thrower? A lot to consider, a lot to play out, but one thing we know for sure, it'll be heavily scrutinized between now and what, I guess, September 1st of next year or this year.
Long time to sort things out, and a lot to sort out on offense, not just the quarterback position, Travis, but, of course, a lot of new faces on that offensive line. Alabama losing Tyler Steen at left tackle, a couple of guards, and Ekiyor and Cohen, who transferred out. And the wide receiving core kind of revamped. I mean, you've got a couple of your top guys back in Brooks and Burton, but some of your down-the-line guys decided to bolt, and so there is competition to be had there. Cam Latu replaced at tight end. That's another issue. So Reese is going to have his hands full in terms of finding new personnel that can do what he wants. And he's not going to have a ton of tape on some of these guys from last year because in a lot of cases there'll be new faces, at least to the starting lineup.
Yeah, and we know that Notre Dame has been pretty running back and tight end centric in recent years. So I'm sure he likes what he's got at running back. And that's with Justice Haynes already on campus as well as a highly coveted recruit, but certainly Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams, Jam Miller. It's a good looking group in the backfield, man. And so there are some building blocks there. I'm with you. I'm interested in the offensive line. Tyler Booker back at guard, Darian Delacourt and Seth McLaughlin back as centers. Do you look at one of those guys at guard if you like the other at center? There's some combinations that you can sort through. Some of the new guys that are on campus as early enrollees could also factor in there as at the guard position. Some guys that could cross-train between tackle and guard. Caden Proctor, the 5-star early enrollee. But you need another tackle to go along with J.C. Latham. Is Elijah Pritchett ready to go in year 2? A lot of things to sort out on that offensive line. And I'm with you on wide receiver, too. I know that Burton and Brooks are back. And, that's the first time, I think, since 2016, Alabama's top 2 wide receivers from a previous season have returned together. You got to go back to, what was it, Stewart and Ridley, I think, maybe way back then. So that's an interesting thing to consider at wide receiver. I like Bond. I like Prentice inside. But Malik Benson coming in from the junior college ranks has a lot of potential. And then you said it too with tight end C.J. Dupree coming in from Maryland as a transfer already on campus, and Robbie Oots at that position. How does that work out here?
Niblack, yep.
Yeah, Amari Niblack, yeah.
Well, a lot going on there. I tend to think we're going to see Darian Dalcourt get one of those early looks at guard with McLaughlin at center. And, of course, it's early and things could shake out in any number of ways. But if they –
those two guys have played a lot of football.
They have.
It's both been at center. But each of those guys has played I think it's 1,000 snaps in their Alabama careers.
Yeah.
That's a lot of snaps to just say, well, we're not going to look at one of these guys at that other guard spot if you're assuming Booker's the guy at one, right?
Latham flop to that left side, or do you think no?
I think he does. That's been the natural progression that we've seen in the past, right? So That would be my thought with Pritchett or Caden Proctor, one of these new guys. And look, some of these guys that have worked inside, like Terrence Ferguson and Jaden Roberts, they've got tackle on their resumes too. So as we both know, between guard center, tackle guard, cross-training guys, we know that Nick Saban and Eric Wolford aren't going to leave any rock. They're going to turn over every rock to find the 5 they want. Find the 5 they want and figure it out from there. That seems to be kind of how it goes in some years.
There you have it. That is going to do it for this edition of the Talkin Tide podcast. When Travis and I come back for our next one, we'll be previewing that SEC basketball tournament. It's coming up, of course, next week at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. So for Travis Reier of BamaOnline.com, I'm Chase Goodbread of the Tuscaloosa News and Crimson Cover Television, and we will talk to you next time right here on Talkin Tide.